What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and the Premier League is back. It's been too long. And good 3-0 win against Huddersfield away for our first game. This was a weird game, though, for a few reasons. First of all, I will say it's kind of ironic. I still have yet to upload my review of Man City, which I'm probably still going to do just because there are some relevant points that I made in that I do think are still probably going to play in a bit to this season. But I'm it's funny to me because in that one I'm so frustrated, and even after the Leon game, like, I never did a review of that one, but I was really frustrated with that one too for a few reasons. Our preseason wasn't very convincing. You look at the lineup that he put out there, Morata's in, no Hazard, Conte's playing a little bit further up the field instead of dropped in deep, David Luiz is playing, and he's playing on the same side as Marcus Alonso. And so there are problems with that starting lineup, and then you look at the first 30 minutes of the first half, it wasn't good. It was really bad, and I'm all over Twitter. I'm pissed. I'm just so pissed off by the lineup, by just the way we were performing. I'm bashing Murata. I'm bashing Pedro. I'm asking where's Hazard and Giroud. And they even came up with the hashtag, by the way. This is not relevant anymore, but everybody's talking about how we're going to be playing sorry ball recently. And so I made the hashtag sorry, as in awful sorry. Yeah. Anyway, after all of that, we score. And I'm just okay, so that kind of came out of nothing. It was our first chance on goal. Cross comes in, Conte, a little bit of a mishit, goes in. I'm just okay, completely against the run of play, but all right, so we're up 1-0, and then they immediately hit back Huddersfield, and they're at us again right off pretty much the next chance they get. It's a corner header, comes off the inside of the post. I'm just all right, here we go. Now they're going to take it to us. And then we get a penalty, and Jorginho puts it away easily. And so somehow, after that terrible first half, we're up 2-0. And I'm just what is going on? It was the weirdest first half I think I've ever experienced as a Chelsea fan. I've never seen us play so poorly and still end up winning at the end of the first half, and comfortably winning too. And then second half, the first half never happened. We were dominant. We completely controlled the play, created a ton of good chances. Hazard comes on and helps with the third goal, gets an assist to Pedro. I'm just okay, so that was interesting. It was so weird. I was so ready. After 30 minutes, I'm just all right, I'm going to rip into them. I'm ready to just tear into Sarri and everything he's doing with the team right now, because I don't like it. I don't like the play. I don't like the players he's putting out there. The formation isn't working for us. And then all of a sudden it was. I don't know what happened. Now, with that, and the reason I am still going to upload the Man City game, because there is a caveat in this, and that is Huddersfield weren't really that good either. And I do think that's something that we need to take out of this game as well. Obviously, take the positives, of course, because there are some positives to be taken from this game, a lot of positives. But we need to look at the negatives too, because when we face better opposition, that's when these negatives are going to pop up. And I talked about this a bit last season as well. There were games where we looked okay, but some of the issues were still there in those games, even if we did win. And then we didn't address those issues. We eked by in a couple games, and all of a sudden we get beat 4-0 by Bournemouth and Watford. That's what I'm talking about. There are those negative things that need to be talked about, and that's why I do these reviews, to kind of discuss those with other Chelsea fans. But there are those negative things that do need to be discussed and looked at before we go into games against Arsenal. Looking at Man City today and looking at Liverpool today, they played very well. So we need to look at these negative things and address those before we hit those big games, because, those teams are going to capitalize on those issues. So, with that being said, first of all, let's look at the individual performances. Kepa, the keeper, because I'm not going to remember how to say his last name. I do well to remember some of the names, like Azpilicueta. That's one that I know how to say, and I'm glad I know how to say it. But something, yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to call him Kepa. But he, had a few saves to make. He looked okay, pretty confident for a young keeper. The one probably issue that I do have with him, though, is just the fact that there were times where it felt like it wasn't quite good enough. People talked about, oh, he's good with his feet. He's really good with his feet. And yet there were times when his clearances couldn't even make it to half field. So I don't know if he just, maybe it popped up on him or something, or he's trying not to really blast it. He's trying to more control it. But there were some moments where I'm just like, really, he's good with his feet? Because I didn't see it there. It could also be just nervousness. First game in, he just arrived at the club and he tossed in the goal right away. But as far as being a keeper himself, I mean, he's good. He's made some good saves. He looks very confident. He's not quite the same build as Courtois was, so that's something that we're gonna miss, I think, because anytime a cross came into within the 6-yard box, Courtois had it no problem. With Kepa, it's not going to be that easy because he is a bit smaller. His arms aren't as long as Courtois are, so we're going to miss that a bit. But I think as far as making saves are concerned, I think we're not going to have that much of an issue. I think he's going to be good there. So excited to see what we can get out of him. I'm hoping he's going to be a keeper that can make a difference for us. I've talked about this with Courtois before. Last season, there were moments where it felt like he could have been making saves to keep us in the game, and that's what we see from keepers like De Gea, or Ederson, or even Czech sometimes for Arsenal can make some good saves that will keep him in a game. We didn't really see a whole lot of that out of Courtois. He would make the saves he was supposed to make, but never really stretched himself to make great saves that would keep us in the game. So I'm hoping that Kepa can do that for us going forward. As far as the back four is concerned, it is a pretty weak back four. David Luiz isn't that great of a defender. Marcos Alonso isn't really a defensive player. And I personally think that our transfer team did a terrible job in the summer of setting up for Sarri's system. Because the thing is, you look at what we have. We have Alonso, we have Emerson, we have Zappacosta, and then we have Azpilicueta. That's pretty much it for our fullbacks. And 3 of those were brought in to fit Antonio Conte's system of a 3-4-3. However, none of them are fullbacks. We saw in Zappacosta in the preseason, not a fullback. He's not a defender back there. Alonso, he looks good going forward, but defensively there are times he doesn't look fast enough to keep up with those wingers. Emerson, I haven't seen a lot of good defensive play out of him. So the fact that we didn't go get a fullback to fit Sarri's system, in my opinion, is a failure of the transfer department again. And it's not the first time that our transfer team has failed in recent years. So I'm still very frustrated with that, and that's something that I'll probably talk about when I do my overall transfer video. But anyway, as far as Alonso and David Luiz are concerned, they were definitely our weak point. They're slow. They really don't take up good defensive positions. There are times when they look a little bit lazy. Pass goes in behind them and they just kind of jog to get back into position instead of sprinting back like you'll see Azpilicueta and Rudiger do. They instantly try to get back in a good position to make a block or to put themselves in a position to win the ball. With David Luiz and Alonso, you don't see that as much. You don't see them like sprinting and putting themselves in good positions. They're just kind of jogging around sometimes. And especially in the first half when things were a bit slower back there, you could see a lot of it did come from that side, a lot of the best chances for Huddersfield. So I think that's a very weak side to have right now. If we are going to have to deal with having David Luiz and Alonso in, at least put Rudiger on Alonso's side and Azpilicueta on David Luiz's side. So that way we have a good defender on each side instead of David Luiz and Alonso, the 2 problem ones on one side, and then Rudiger and Azpilicueta, the 2 great ones on the other. Great, now we're unbalanced. So, but with that being said, there weren't any real big problems from David Luiz and Alonso, but they are problems that when we face better teams, it's going to hurt us. We're going to get run past, we're going to get beat with speed, we're going to get beat without being outworked. So that is something that I feel like we need better players in those positions because they aren't going to cut it when we face the big teams. As far as Rudiger and Azpilicueta are concerned, though, both of them played pretty well. I would like to see a little bit more from, I think, Azpilicueta, just as far as I think there are moments where he's a better defender than what we see early on in the season. And this has not been the first time I've thought this either. When he gets into the season, when we get midway in, he looks great. He looks like our best defender easily. However, it feels like every season he kind of has this slow start where there are times he gets beat with speed or he gets outpaced. The same thing. He gets out muscled. So, I don't know. I don't know why he has these slow starts, but I do hope that he can really kick it into gear soon. But Rudiger, very solid for him. So, good to see that at least two of our defenders are looking solid and prepared. Um, as far as the midfield is concerned, I think it's a pretty strong midfield. I think Barkley is obviously the weak link, very uninvolved in the first half, and even in the second when we started looking a bit more effective, didn't really see a whole lot of him. You had moments where he popped up with something good for a second, and then he's gone again for the next 10 minutes. So I want to see more out of him. I want to see him getting more involved. Because frankly, I mean, we've got better options. Kovacic coming in, or Kovacic? I don't remember how to say it. But we've got him coming in. We've got Loftus-Cheek, who I'll talk about him later, but looking a bit better. I think Hazard could even drop in as a third midfielder, because we see him dropping deep when he came off the bench. He drops in deep and he looks to spring the attack from the midfield. So it might even be where we just go ahead and put him in as a third midfielder and have him be that player that drops in and then takes it up, a bit more box to box, kind of like what Conte was doing. So I worry for Barkley because I feel like he's slowly becoming just completely irrelevant. And it's kind of like everybody was thinking, oh, maybe he's moved to Chelsea. Maybe this is a chance to jumpstart his career again, give some time under some good coaches and really start to look the player that everybody expected him to be. But he's not. He's just kind of fading into irrelevance. So as far as the other two are concerned, though, Jorginho I thought played well, did a good job in the midfield, reading the play, cutting off passes, and then on the ball, obviously looks very confident, swinging it wide, keeping the ball moving. And it's funny because, honestly, watching Conte for France, I'm thinking that's what Conte's going to do. He's going to be that player that drops in. And so when Jorginho started doing it in preseason, everybody was talking about, oh, that's obviously where he'll be. I'm like, no, Conte's going to be there, of course. And then we start the season, and sure enough, Jorginho's there. Conte's the one making the box-to-box runs. I'm just like, but is that where Conte needs to play? And then the second half started, and even, in the first half when he scored the goal, I'm like, oh, okay. It wasn't a great hit, but he's in the right position. He did well with his chance, and he scores. Okay, then maybe he can be a bit more box to box, but I'm still not convinced. And then second half starts, and then I'm completely convinced. Like the runs he made, the ability to get up and down the field, he gets up in the attack and then he gets back on defense. He runs so much, he can run so much. I'm just like, why did we not try to do this last season? Why did we not make him a bit more of a defender and attacker type of midfielder? Because he can do it. And I was shocked. I'm like, holy crap, why were we not utilizing this? The runs he was making in the second half were so dangerous. And honestly, he probably could have had maybe even a goal or two more, or at least an assist, because there were two runs that he made that if Pedro and Morata, if they had picked up their heads and seen it, he was in a ton of space, and nobody's catching him when he's going at full pace. So I was amazed. I'm like, oh my goodness, he can do this. He can be our box-to-box midfielder. He can be the one that not only gets back and works hard defensively and just bodies people off the ball, but he can get down the field and make some good passes. He can put himself in good positions. He makes good runs that cause the defenders to have to adjust. In my opinion, Jorginho won man of the match, and I feel like part of that was because, he did get the goal, and it was his debut, and he did well, and, connecting the play. But in my opinion, I thought Conte just, the fact that this is the first time he's been kind of the box-to-box midfielder that we saw in the game, I was amazed. I was just completely blown away by the fact that he can even do that part of it. Is there anything he can't do? Really? Oh my goodness. But yeah, I'm excited to see what more we can get out of him because it seems like he's got more to contribute in this role, and it feels like it's going to cause defenders a lot to think about. What do we do now that he's running at us? Because, if you put him under high pressure, and Conte's the one putting him under high pressure in defense, that's going to cause some issues because we see a lot of these teams that like to play out of the back, Man City, Liverpool, and even Arsenal today we saw, they have issues when they're put under high pressure. Well, Conte's going to be the one doing that now. How much more difficult is that going to be for them? So I'm really excited, but as far as our midfield is concerned, I thought first half looked pretty poor. We had issues with connectivity in there. And honestly, our first half, it wasn't poor because we were playing really, really bad. It was just we couldn't do anything with it. We weren't doing anything effective. It was just constant possession in our defense, but there was no real connectivity in the midfield and there was no movement up top. And so with that being said, our front three, first half was not good for many of them. Willian couldn't find the space to get on the ball. Pedro was giving up possession way too easily. Murata was being Murata. So not much really in the first half to talk about. Obviously, the last 10 minutes looked a bit better, mainly from Willian and Pedro. They started connecting a bit more. And then you get into the second half, and Pedro looked a completely different player than from the first half. Like, he just, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, stepped it up. He started making good runs. He actually started keeping possession of the ball instead of giving it away cheaply. The passes that he was making were a lot more effective. Willian managed to find space and managed to find the ball, which helped a lot because now he's able to pick out some good passes. I thought Alonso making the runs in the second half also helped open up a bit more space for Willian, so that's something I'm going to give him credit for. He did manage to get forward a bit more in the second half, which helped out a lot. So, yeah, those two really stepped it up, but with that being said, Murata, nothing changed. First half, uninvolved, ineffective. Second half, uninvolved, ineffective. The Murata experiment has to end. It's not been good enough in the preseason. He's not been good enough now. A lot of people, I mentioned on one of Chelsea's, I think Chelsea posted something with Hudson-Odoi doing some flicks and tricks. I said, Hudson-Odoi, Hazard, Giroud, that front three is going to be deadly. And a lot of people are like, Giroud, what are you talking about? Giroud sucks, man. Look, he doesn't score a whole lot, but the pressure he puts on the defense is just completely invaluable. Like, the way you can't even put a price tag on it, how much he does to put the pressure on the defense. It's similar to like a Diego Costa situation, but the difference between Costa and Giroud is Costa actually did manage to pick up the ball and beat defenders and score off of it. Giroud doesn't do that as much, but he still does put in a challenge on the defenders. I mean, he's a big body. You have to try to defend that. If the ball's in the air, he's going to knock you out of the way to try to get it. I mean, as a defender, that's scary. To have a striker that big that's going to put that much pressure on you, that is hard to defend. What does Murata do to put the defense under pressure? Oh, well, he makes a run in behind, and now he's offsides. What about when the defenders have the ball? Oh, well, he'll run at you, and then whenever you pass the ball away, he'll stop. What about when he has the ball at his feet? Oh, he'll do like a step over and then probably, make a bad pass. Kick it right at the defender. I can remember there was a moment, great turn. I think it was in the second half. Great turn around the defender. He managed to get him behind him. He's taking it down the line, and his touch takes him out wide. And so now he's kind of at the side of the 18. I'm just like, okay, let's see what he'll do with this. He's got Pedro running in. I think Conte was also making a run for him. Kicks it right at the defender. He had two cutbacks. He could cut it straight back or he could try to thread the needle. And he kicks it right at the defender. I'm just like, really? You couldn't do anything with that? And that's why, in my opinion, Giroud's going to provide more. He's not going to score a lot of goals, sure, but the defense is going to have issues with him. They're going to have trouble trying to keep him under lock because he's big. You can't just, I'm just going to put a hand on you and you're going to fall over like Murata. No, you've actually got to put in a challenge on him. And most of the time, he's not just going to fall under a challenge. He's going to hold the ball up. He's going to flick it off. And that is something, it's why he's played every game for France in the World Cup, because that's what he provides. And yet we're still going with Murata in the first game. And we loaned out Batshuayi, which is something I'm going to really rip into the club about when I do my transfer video, because that is just dumb to me, that we're still trying out Murata even though he's provided absolutely nothing for the team. Screw what he does individually. I don't care if he scores or assists. I don't care if he does any of that. I want to know what he's doing for the team. And right now he's doing nothing. He's providing us absolutely nothing. So, in my opinion, for the time being, I'm done with Murata. If he steps it up, if he can prove me wrong, if he can prove he's still got it in him, great. But I do not see the desire. I do not see the will to work. I don't see any of what we need out of a striker. And so until he can show that, in my opinion, he doesn't deserve to be at the club. He deserves to be moved on. He should have been loaned out instead of Batshuayi to let him get some time away, because we need someone who like Batshuayi who's willing to work, who's willing to put in the effort to cause problems for the defense instead of just, oh, I'll run at you once and then I'm done. Or, oh, you touch me and I fall over and the ref's not going to give a foul because I'm an obvious flopper. So anyway, that is probably the biggest frustration for me out of this entire game. The rest of it, the slow start to the first half, most of that is stuff where I can kind of look at it and see, okay, new system we're working on. We're starting off the season. Some of these players, they're still kind of getting into the rhythm of things. So I can kind of look at it and excuse some of it. But Murata, there's no excuse for him. I mean, it's got to get better. It hasn't gotten better. It's time. Either be done with him or let him go out on loan. I don't know. So with that being said, now we go to the subs that came in. Loftus-Cheek was the first one for Barkley. I like the fact that Sarri is willing to give him a chance. I'm still really disappointed that Hudson-Odoi, after his big statement of, he's staying with us this year, he's going to be involved, doesn't play him at all in the game against Lyon, the last preseason game. And it's not because he was saving him for this game, because he wasn't even on the bench. So I'm disappointed that he's not given more chances to Hudson-Odoi, who has really earned it with his preseason performances. But with that being said, I mean, he's given Loftus-Cheek a chance, which is good. He's a young player who I do think if he gets some time, I think he can develop. The big problem I still have with Loftus-Cheek is the defensive work rate still's not good enough. On the ball, no problem with him there. He makes some good passes, very strong. He can hold up the ball very well. But defensively, he's not good enough. He doesn't work back well. He doesn't really track runners very well. There are moments you can see in the second half after he comes on that the midfield just sort of, we lose possession and then they have space to run. And you can see Loftus-Cheek last minute like, oh, that's my man, and has to run. But his reactions to go defend are very, very slow. He's not reading that very well. So until he can learn to do that, I feel like Barkley's still going to have a little bit of an edge on him. Because, frankly, Barkley is willing to work to win the ball back, and we've seen that. He's not always effective doing it, but he does work to do that sometimes. Whereas Loftus-Cheek, I hardly ever see him working to win the ball back, and that's kind of disappointing. So that's something that he needs to improve, but I think he's shown he does have the skills and the quality to be on the ball. So he's just got to improve that side of it before we can really trust him in the midfield. Then you go to Hazard and Moses came on for Pedro and Willian. Hazard came on for Willian first, and in my opinion, good move. Giving him a chance to come off the bench, giving him still a bit of a rest because he just did come back to the team recently. In my opinion, came off the bench and really did well. I mean, just dominated the play almost from the minute he stepped on the field, and I think that's important, because all this talk about is he going to leave, there's talk that, improved contract offer and his captaincy on the team. I mean, all of this is very important because he's a vital player, and if he's willing to stick around, if he's willing to work for the team, great, because we're going to need that. We're going to need a player like Hazard. But, if you kind of let him fade out of the team, if you kind of start trusting in players like Pedro more or Willian more, you do kind of get concerned that maybe his thoughts are going to be, well, you guys don't even trust me to lead the team, so I'm going to go to a place where I know that they want me. But with that being said, I think that for now at least he's willing to work. I think he's willing to put in the effort on the ball, off the ball to really help the team. And just from what I saw so far, he looks ready for this season, which is great to see. And then, of course, Moses is the other one, kind of given a bit more, I guess, a bit more time as a wing under Sarri so far. In preseason, he was the secondary wing that would come on. I still don't think he's quite got the quality to make it in this team. And the main reason I say that is because the reason he got moved to wing back is because he had the speed to get up and down the line and provide on both sides of it. And he had enough speed to do the defensive side of it as well. But when you put him as a wing, on the ball, his quality sometimes isn't the best. He's pretty good at cutting inside and taking on defenders with speed. But if you give him the ball when he's already inside, then there's not a whole lot he can do with it. His passing isn't always the best. Sometimes he gives it away. And honestly, strength-wise, he gets bodied off the ball a bit too easily. So when you put him out at wingback, he had enough space and time out there to really cause some trouble. But then when you put him inside as more of an inside winger, with Spilicueta as the fullback making the runs around him, it kind of negates what made him special as a wingback. So I'm not sure if he's going to make it as a wing. I mean, he came off the bench and did okay. Had a few good moments, but I just don't think if you compare him to Willian, to Pedro, to Hazard, even to Hudson-Odoi, who in my opinion really showed out in preseason, I don't think he quite has what these other players can bring. And so I'm worried he's just kind of slowly get pushed off to the side. So a little disappointed for him. This change of system I think is going to hurt him probably the most out of all the players. So I'm disappointed for Moses, but at the same time, you kind of have to know it's a new coach coming in. There are going to be changes. That's probably going to be one of them. So with all that being said, though, I mean, it was a good result. There were a lot of concerning points in the first half, and obviously the concerning point of Murata and what's going to happen with him. But overall, I mean, we were one of the best teams in the weekend. Obviously Liverpool dominating West Ham was another strong team. Man City put on a dominating performance against Arsenal today, so that's another team that's going to be rough. But you look at the others. Tottenham did okay against Newcastle, but weren't really convincing. Man U, same old Man U. Under Mourinho, scored and then pretty much sat back the rest of the game and nearly gave it away late against Leicester. So the fact that we managed to go to Huddersfield with kind of a weakened lineup compared to what we're probably going to be using later on, and we still managed to look poor and win the game 3-0, I think that's it's concerning, but it's also positive, because concerning we're not playing well, positive that we still managed to pull out a 3-0 win out of all of this. So take from that what you will, but I'm curious to know what you guys think. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the game, man of the match? Who do you think we should have gotten in the summer for our fullbacks, and who do you think will probably be featuring less as the season goes on? Let me know. We can talk about all that stuff and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next game. Peace out.